Trail Justice, a Rip Campbell Western adventure. The sun hung low on the western horizon, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of the frontier. Rip Campbell rode through the arid plains, his worn leather boots nestled in the stirrups, and his fingers twitching near the polished Colt revolvers at his hips. He was a legend in these parts, known as a quick-draw gunslinger with an unyielding sense of justice. Rip had been tracking a gang of outlaws through the rugged wilderness, a group that had terrorized the frontier towns with a string of robberies and violence. His mission was clear: to bring these ruthless bandits to justice. As the evening sun dipped lower, Rip spotted a trail of dust rising in the distance. He knew it was the gang, and he spurred his trusty steed, Midnight, into action. The wind howled through the canyons as the chase began. The outlaw gang was led by Jackson Snakebite Reynolds, a notorious gunslinger with a reputation for ruthlessness. Rip had clashed with Snakebite before, and he knew that this confrontation was inevitable. The chase led them through rocky terrain, with towering mesas and cacti that seemed to claw at the heavens. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, the world was bathed in the eerie light of the rising moon. Suddenly, a barrage of gunfire erupted from the shadows. Rip's horse reared, and bullets whizzed past him. In an instant, he was shot off his steed and tumbled to the dusty ground. Pain shot through Rip's side, but he refused to yield. He crawled for cover, his Colt revolvers in hand. The outlaws emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden by bandanas. Well, if it ain't Rip Campbell," Snakebite sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You've been quite the thorn in our side, lawman." Rip's gaze remained steady, his fingers trembling as they hovered over his Colt triggers. "Your reign of terror ends tonight, Snakebite." The standoff was tense, the air charged with the promise of violence. But before the outlaws could make a move, a shot rang out from the darkness, and one of the bandits fell, clutching his shoulder. It was a distraction that Rip seized upon. With lightning speed, he drew his Colts and opened fire. Bullets found their mark, and the outlaws scattered into the night. Rip staggered to his feet, his side throbbing with pain. He mounted Midnight, determined to pursue the fleeing bandits. The trail led Rip to a remote frontier town, a dusty outpost that had seen better days. The town's wooden buildings creaked in the night wind, and the only signs of life came from the flickering lanterns of the saloon. Rip knew that the outlaws had sought refuge in the town, and he made his way to the saloon, his boots echoing on the wooden sidewalk. Inside, the saloon was dimly lit, and a cloud of cigarette smoke hung in the air. The patrons huddled around the scarred wooden tables, casting wary glances at Rip as he entered. The bartender, a grizzled man with a scar across his cheek, glanced up from polishing a glass. "You look like you've been through hell, stranger." Rip nodded, his eyes scanning the room. "I'm hunting a gang of outlaws. They passed through here." A tense silence settled over the saloon, broken only by the creaking of a ceiling fan. Rip's gaze fell on a group of men at the far end of the bar, their faces hidden in the shadows of wide-brimmed hats. Suddenly, a voice rang out, cold and mocking. Well, look who's here. It's Rip Campbell, the lawman who can't be killed." Rip's eyes narrowed as the outlaws stepped into the dim light. It was Snakebite and his gang, the very men he had been pursuing. They had taken refuge in the saloon, and now, a deadly showdown was inevitable. Rip's fingers tightened around his Colt revolvers, and the outlaws did the same. The tension in the saloon was palpable, the air thick with the promise of violence. "You can't win, Campbell," Snakebite taunted, his hand hovering over his own Colt. "You're outnumbered." With a lightning-fast draw, Rip fired a shot that shattered a bottle on the bar. The saloon erupted into chaos as gunfire filled the air. Tables were overturned, and glass shattered as the battle raged on. Bullets whizzed past Rip, but he stood his ground, his aim true. One by one, the outlaws fell to his relentless gunfire. As the dust settled, Rip stood victorious over the fallen bandits. Snakebite lay wounded on the saloon floor, his gun just out of reach. Rip holstered his Colts and approached the outlaw leader. "It's over, Snakebite. You and your gang are done." Snakebite glared up at Rip, his eyes filled with hatred. "You may have won this round, lawman, but the Wild West is a big place. We'll meet again." With that, Rip turned away from the defeated outlaws and walked out of the saloon. The frontier town was silent once more, the threat of violence lifted. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Rip mounted Midnight and rode out of the town. The pursuit of justice had come at a price, but the Wild West was vast, And there were always more adventures on the horizon. And so, under the vast western sky, Rip Campbell rode off into the sunrise, ready to face whatever challenges the frontier had in store for him next.